At night on the sea under the moon, the fishermen had lost hope of calling for help. Their boat was drifting. The storm had subsided, but suddenly something majestic and unimaginable rose above the surface of the water. They heard a cry, "My God, come here!" and felt their hearts start to beat faster. Something enormous swam so close that the fishing lines and rods trembled. They saw only a silhouette. The waves parted, and a dark, massive body emerged from the depths. No fish, whale, or shark they knew could look like that. They screamed, not even understanding themselves, out of terror and awe. A testimony to the moments that followed. The boat rocked gently, the branches of the fishing gear rattled nervously. On the horizon, the icy wind whispered words of terror. The fishermen insisted firmly. The creature was bigger than their boat. It stretched above the water like a massive silhouette, impossible to take in at a glance. The screams were not caused by panic without reason. They were calling for those who could help. Other people, the Coast Guard, maybe a motorboat. This scene, it's like a chilling shot from a documentary film, marks the beginning of our investigation. We won't just retell the story, we'll stand alongside those who saw it, feel the fear, the question of what it was, why it seemed impossible, and why the witnesses are certain it wasn't a dream. But what if such screams weren't a one-time occurrence? What if something like this had already happened before? We move on to the second stage of this story, where behind the scenes of fear lurks something more than just an implausible silhouette. Witnesses claimed it was as big as a bridge or a longship, but taller and more massive. Of course, shock can affect perception, and yet their words deserve attention. One of the fishermen later drew a sketch where the creature took up almost the entire length of the vessel, with room to spare. According to rough estimates, its body was over 100 feet long, and its silhouette resembled both a whale and something unfamiliar. They described a convex back like that of marine mammals, but with curves and thickenings that do not match any known species. To grasp the scale, it's enough to recall that the blue whale, the largest animal known to science, reaches about 100 feet. That is already the limit of what is possible in nature. But the fishermen insisted. Their visitor was even larger. One of them said that when it moved, the surface of the water vibrated, as if a submarine was passing underneath. And there was no engine noise, just a heavy movement. According to them, the mass of its body was so great that the waves seemed to scatter away from it. The boat rocked as if responding to the approach of a vessel, even though there was no one else around. Such effects are indeed possible if a body displaces a large volume of water, and this is even confirmed by scientific models of whale behavior. The only question is whether it really could have been that big. To understand how such claims fit into the bigger picture, we'll have to look back into history. It turned out that similar sightings had happened before, much earlier. Few people know that similar observations have been recorded all over the world, from Japan to the Norwegian seas, from the Caribbean to the Falkland Islands. In the early 20th century, sailors in the Pacific Ocean reported seeing something the length of a ship emerging from the depths. In the 17th century, Scottish whalers wrote about a huge shadow passing beneath their ships. The annals of the New England Maritime Academy preserve records from the 19th century. The crew of the whaling ship Endeavour described a massive back breaking through the waves, after which the body would dive back under. That's what they wrote. This is not a whale, not something familiar, but something different. These records in the archives of the Marine Museum are corroborated by the crew's logbook. In the 20th century, with the development of underwater photography and acoustics, there were reports that echo sounders detected objects larger than the usual size range for whales. In some reports, military ships indicated unusual echo signals measuring hundreds of meters, but these data were often attributed to equipment malfunctions. These historical facts tell us that our observation today is not a unique miracle, but part of a long chain. And if we put these pieces of evidence together, a pattern may emerge. The giants of the ocean are not half-true legends, but potentially real entities. Now we are about to find out which creatures are already recognized as the largest and what place our mysterious witness might occupy in this classification. Prehistoric oceans were home to true titans. The megalodon, a gigantic prehistoric shark that lived millions of years ago, is now estimated to have reached lengths of up to 70 feet. Its jaws were powerful enough to bite through a whale's spine, and its teeth were larger than a human hand. The appearance of the megalodon in the marine ecosystem meant the reign of an absolute predator. Another giant was Livyatan melvillei, an extinct species of sperm whale. It measured about 60 feet in length, and its jaws were equipped with massive teeth that rivaled those of sharks. This made it one of the few marine mammals that could compete with the megalodon. There were others as well, such as marine reptiles from the plesiosaur group, with long necks, short tails, and huge flippers. Some of them reach sizes that astonish even modern scientists. It's important to understand that all these creatures went extinct millions of years ago. However, their remains are still being found to this day, from teeth to vertebrae. Scientists use them to reconstruct the appearance and behavior of prehistoric giants. All the data has been confirmed and studied. This is not speculation, but part of the scientific picture of the past. The fact that such giants existed in history lends weight to the idea that the oceans really could have hidden life forms of enormous size. But is there any chance that the descendants of such creatures somehow survived extinction? Further exploration of the modern ocean depths gives rise to unexpected hypotheses. According to modern biology, the largest recorded living marine creature, the blue whale, reaches a length of about 100 feet. Some individuals have weighed close to 200 tons. Nevertheless, this is a physiological and ecological limit. It is difficult for a complex organism to maintain an even greater mass. Nevertheless, the ocean conceals many little studied forms of life. For example, the giant squid Archaeotoides duax can reach a body length of 30 feet, not including its tentacles. Although it is not particularly massive, its impressive size has given rise to legends. As recently as the 21st century, the existence of giant jellyfish reaching dozens of feet in diameter was confirmed. There are groups of chimeras, deep-sea fish, whose light organs, called photophores, allow them to camouflage themselves or attract prey. In the depths, where submersibles rarely descend, there may be species still unknown to science. In oceanic waters that are almost devoid of oxygen, there exist life forms adapted to these exotic conditions. But an important limitation is that none of these species come close to the claimed size, which exceeds that of the largest whales. Biochemical and energetic constraints, oxygen delivery, pressure, and nutrition all impose strict limits on growth. In the next part, we will talk about how often people make mistakes, what could make an ordinary whale be mistaken for a monster, and what perceptual traps deceive us. Ready to continue? Often, a monster is not a new form of life, but a poorly identified old one. Even well-known sea creatures can look terrifying if they are injured, decomposed, or only partially visible. Fishermen who encounter a large body in the water often mistake a whale for something else, especially in poor visibility conditions. When only part of the back or tail surfaces, the brain fills in the missing pieces, and a monster is born. The giant squid is a frequent candidate in such stories. Its tentacles can stretch across the water for dozens of feet, creating the illusion of a creature many times larger. Even dead and washed up on shore, a squid changes its shape. The tissues stretch, the tentacles elongate, and the scale becomes distorted. Numerous photographs of such carcasses in the past fueled rumors about sea monsters, but later scientists explained that these were just ordinary Archaeoteutes, although they are very large. There is also the colossal squid, a resident of Antarctic waters, whose mass can reach almost 500 kilograms. Although it is shorter than the giant squid, its body is denser, but even it remains within a reasonable biological range. In addition, science has recorded cases where a cuttlefish or deep-sea anemones appear to observers in the dark as entire tentacled monsters. The light of bioluminescence, shadows, and the ripple of water can deceive even an experienced sailor's perception. The mind clings to fear, and a vision becomes an image. But even if most monsters are just tricks of the eye, we should still look into places where no human has ever set foot, where the depths hide those who are truly unknown. Did you know that humanity has explored less than 20% of the ocean floor? This means that the vast majority of the sea remains a dark spot for us. This is especially true for depths below 3,000 feet. There is no light there, almost no life as we know it, and the pressure is enough to crush any unprepared object. In such places dwell creatures that are frightening in appearance, eyeless, spiny, and semi-transparent. Their bodies are adapted to extreme conditions and their behavior to energy scarcity. They rarely move, use chemical light, and feed on sediment and organic matter falling from above. All of this limits their size. But there are exceptions. At great depths, organisms measuring dozens of feet in length have been recorded. This includes jellyfish and siphonophores. The latter are colonies of creatures that appear as a single animal. The longest siphonophore, discovered off the coast of Australia, reached a length of over 140 feet, and that's no myth. Nevertheless, no massive, dense organisms with bony structures have been found there. Even large fish found at such depths rarely exceed 10 feet in length. The reason is energetic inefficiency. To sustain a large organism, a lot of food is needed, and there simply isn't any there. Nevertheless, there are unexplored areas. Deep-sea trenches, thermal faults, underwater canyons. Some sections have never been scanned. It is possible that something we can only speculate about is hiding there. Now let's analyze what scientific instruments have seen and heard, and whether any of them have confirmed the unexplained. Modern technology. Our main weapon against doubt. Underwater vehicles, drones, echo sounders, satellites. Each tool provides its own way to hear or see the ocean. Echo sounders generate acoustic signals and measure the time it takes for the echo to return. This allows us to estimate the size of objects underwater. Some enhanced echo sounders have detected ghost echoes of enormous size, but such signals are often emphasized by noise or multipath interference. Autonomous underwater vehicles with cameras are lowered to thousands of meters. They have filmed creatures that had never been seen before. For example, rare squids, brochulas, and giant jellyfish. But the quality of the footage is often poor, the lighting is minimal, and it's difficult to make out the shape. Blurry silhouettes are easily mistaken for something bigger than they actually are. There are recordings where the camera captured the back of a large creature rising from the depths with waves around it, like a mound of water. But the field of view was narrow, and it was often impossible to judge the length or scale. Such footage raises a lot of questions. Satellite images are applicable on the surface. Large objects, ships, icebergs. They are visible, but submarines and underwater bodies are not. Sometimes objects floating near the surface are recorded as anomalies, and people speculate that these are large bodies underwater, rising toward the light. But even with technology, we have little convincing evidence of a giant creature surpassing whales. The next chapter, about how scientists react when they receive such data, and where they set their filters. Scientists rarely jump to conclusions. Their job is to rule out all possible errors before claiming something incredible. And yet, there have been cases when even they doubted their own eyes. One example is a Japanese research mission in the Pacific Ocean. An automatic camera captured a silhouette that could have been over 90 feet long. But the lighting, viewing angles, and speed of the object made it impossible to say for sure that it was a living creature. Subsequent analysis showed that it was probably a group of squid or interference. In another case, an American research vessel near the Bermuda Islands recorded an echo signal from an object comparable in size to a submarine. A repeat scan produced different data. Most likely it was a school of fish gathered into a dense column. But the researchers wondered why the signal was so dense and lasted so long. It is important to remember that science records anomalies and analyzes them. If an object falls into the category of unidentified, it doesn't mean it's a monster, but it also doesn't rule out a discovery. This is exactly how humanity has discovered new species, not by believing immediately, but by verifying. Some oceanologists admit that sometimes you just have to say, "We don't know." This is not a defeat, but the beginning of a new question. And when there are many such cases, a hypothesis is born. However, not everyone agrees with these approaches. Skeptics are convinced that everything can be explained, and we will give them a voice. When stories about sea monsters reach the general public, skeptics are the first to speak out. Their position is simple: everything must be verified. No photos, no videos, no biological samples. Then the story is just that, a story. They remind us that people tend to exaggerate, especially at sea, where visibility is poor, distances are deceptive, and fear conjures up images. Numerous cases of monster sightings later turned out to be just whales, dolphins, or large fish. A single fin, and the mind fills in the rest. There have also been cases of outright hoaxes. In the 20th century, one captain admitted that he told stories about a giant creature just to get into the newspapers. At the time, his ship wasn't catching any fish, and the sensation helped him get attention. Skeptics also point to echo signals. Even modern instruments can malfunction. Ships record shadows, noises, and reflections from the terrain. Often it's just layers of water with different temperatures or fish packed tightly together. But the main argument of the skeptics is statistics. In all the decades of ocean research, no one has produced the remains of a creature larger than a blue whale, which means, most likely, it simply doesn't exist. However, opponents of this approach ask a simple question: what if we just haven't found it yet? When searching for a real candidate for the role of sea monster, squids are one of the main contenders, especially the giant squid Architeuthis and the Antarctic colossal squid Messonychoteuthis hamiltoni. These creatures really do exist and sometimes reach sizes that shock unprepared observers. Architeuthis can reach a length of over 30 feet, including its tentacles, and its mass is measured in hundreds of kilograms. Sometimes old records mention specimens up to 60 feet long, but there is no documentary evidence to support these stories. Often, the bodies of dead squids fall apart, their tentacles stretch out, and most eyewitnesses see only a distorted form. Messonychoteuthis is larger in terms of mass. One recorded specimen weighed almost 500 kilograms. But its body is not long, it's dense. In such a creature, the mass is distributed compactly and it does not have an extremely elongated shape. Therefore, when it comes to the theory of a creature 100 feet long or more, squids are only a partial candidate. Nevertheless, squids are important and closely related to the reality of the hypothesis. They are aggressive, have tentacles with suckers, can reach toward the surface, and create waves and shadows. And even at moderate sizes, their silhouette can appear much larger, especially in poor visibility or rough seas. But still, no squid in history has ever been confirmed to play the role of a monster surpassing whales. And if our mystery is even greater, we'll have to look for another explanation. Not every mysterious silhouette is a living creature. There are plenty of objects in the ocean that can be misleading. Icebergs, underwater rocks, floating cargo, bloated carcasses of dead whales, and even clusters of seaweed can, under certain conditions, look like a moving creature. Light falling at an angle creates the illusion of breathing, and the waves enhance the effect. Twilight, fog, and the reflection of clouds make the picture even more confusing. Another reason for distortions is the peculiarities of human perception. It's hard to judge distance and scale on the water. Something 100 yards away might seem much closer or farther. Objects are perceived as larger than they actually are, especially if they are partially hidden by waves or emerge from an unexpected direction. There are cases when ships mistook underwater gas or IL rising from the bottom for a monster. The bubble rises, creates pressure, swells the water, and history is born. Even fucked up. Foam created by engine discharges often became the back of a sea monster. Science emphasizes that before making sensational conclusions, all possible natural explanations must be ruled out. And only if everything is ruled out does a mystery arise. And now it's time to sum up our investigation. We've come a long way from the frightened cries of fishermen to deep scientific hypotheses. We've examined stories, biology, technology, and even possible errors in perception. And now we can honestly say, no confirmed evidence of a creature larger than the blue whale has been found so far. But the key word here is so far. We know that more than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. Some areas have never been scanned or visited by underwater vehicles at all. It's possible that something really does dwell in the darkness. Not necessarily something threatening, but still unknown for now. The most likely explanation for what the fishermen saw is a combination of a real object and distorted perception. It could have been a large squid, unusual behavior of a sea creature, the carcass of a dead whale, or even just a rare optical phenomenon. But that doesn't make the story any less important. On the contrary, it shows how little we know about our own oceans. Each case is a reminder that nature knows how to surprise us, even without breaking the laws of physics. And most importantly, if people see something indescribable again, we'll already know how to look for the answer. We will remember this case, not as a tall tale, but as a reason to look deeper, both literally and figuratively. The ocean doesn't have to be magical to be mysterious. It remains the greatest mystery of our planet as it is.